a Fairchild FH-227 of the Uruguayan Air Force. Fairchild FH-227 of the Uruguayan Air Force took off from the Carrasco International Airport in Montevideo in Uruguay towards the Francisco Gabrieli International Airport in Santiago in Chile. The passengers were some students and members of the rugby union team of Montevideo Old Christians. The plane stopped for one night in Mendoza, Argentina due to bad weather. And from tomorrow, the captain of the plane, Colonel Julio Veradas, decided to cross the Andes Mountains next to the Blanchon Petaroa volcano, which is located in the south of the chain, and upon crossing this point, the plane was scheduled to return north to Santiago. But it was a disaster. Instead of going to its front, the plane landed in a desolate, glacial valley high in the Andes, a series of rugged, snow-capped peaks stretching from Bogota, Colombia to Punta Arenas, Chile. During the flight, 15 people were killed, including the pilot, and 5 were seriously injured. At an altitude of 3,600 meters, in a remote area of Malargüe, on the Argentine-Chilean border, the survivors were trapped on one of the peaks in the snow and hail. Up on the mountain, a new kind of social system is forming among the survivors, making the most of the individual energy and talents of all. One sews a sleeping bag out of the plane's insulation. Another hands out a little toothpaste each night as candy. Another person is on the radio as they hear the horrific news that the search for their downed plane has been called off. This was very frustrating for them and caused some to lose hope that they would be able to come back again. From the first days, some suggested going out and looking for places where people are to bring help, and several circles were organized around the plane to search for traces of life. But the cold, altitude, malnutrition, and blindness prevented the survivors from free movement. After they finish what they have left to eat, the survivors come to the strange conclusion that, in order to survive, they must break a taboo, and they must find their sustenance in the flesh of the teammates who died alongside them in the snowy wilderness. They disagreed on this decision among themselves. Before dying in an avalanche in the middle of the road during their ordeal, rugby team captain Marcelo urged his fellow players to consider this necessary breach so that they could survive. And despite this, the struggle between them continued until some of them decided it had to be done. An avalanche covered the plane, which was sheltering the survivors, and claimed the lives of 8 other passengers. Finally, 2 agreed to go out to search for help, and they took with them the hottest clothes and a sufficient amount of the flesh of the victims. after 10 days of walking, during which Fernando Parrado and Roberto Canessa crossed the mountain range. They stopped by a river where they had been decimated by fatigue and malnutrition. They were found by the Uguazu, Chilean horse rider, Sergio Catalan, who informed the authorities. Two military helicopters went to the site of the accident, and one of the survivors, Parrado, guided them to it. Half of the 16 survivors were rescued, and the other half were rescued tomorrow due to bad weather. And everyone was sent for treatment in hospitals because they were suffering from waste, malnutrition, dehydration, vitamin C deficiency, and disease. Heights. Finally, the rescue forces returned to the place, accompanied by a priest, to take the bodies of the victims, as well as to open an investigation into the causes of the crash. This story caused a sensation due to all the troubles and hardships that the passengers went through, which proved their ability to confront. For this reason, the story was written in many different books, the most important and famous of which was the first by the English writer Piers Paul Reed, writing it in 1974. And the book bears the name, Alive, the Story of Survivors in the Andes Mountains. The matter was not limited to this only, but that one of the survivors, after overcoming the matter, wrote a book about all the details that they went through in the accident in a realistic manner, and mentioning all the details, and the book is under the name, Miracle in the Andes Mountains, which is considered the first testimony by the survivors,